Welcome to Go Go Kaiju Show, where we have a healthy obsession with kaiju. I'm your co-host, Kent, and with me is your other co-host,
Jason. How's it going, everyone? And you got everything right.
I blame you because new name. Maybe you should be doing the introductions. So we're discussing, for this episode, we're going to be discussing Netflix's animated Ultraman movie that came out back, I believe it was April, called Rising. Yeah.
Actually,
there's a point I will make about that here in a bit.
Actually, it came out June 14th.
No, it didn't.
Yep. It is. Release date.
No, it didn't. I don't believe you. So we'll be discussing.
I'm looking at Wikipedia over here.
I'm pulling a Ron Burgundy on you. So we'll be discussing that this episode. But before we get into the discussion, Jason, the usual.
Yeah, if you see a subscribe button down below or above us, wherever you're watching us, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. Smash the like button. And if you're listening to us on your favorite audio streams, you can subscribe to us on those audio platforms. So do that.
So do that. That's a command. That is not an ask. That's a command.
Indeed.
All right. So we ready to dive in?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so Ultraman Rising, that apparently came out in June, which I don't believe, is sort of another co-production by Netflix and another Japanese production company, Super Raya Productions, of course, because they own the Ultraman stuff. Although, don't get me into the whole weird licensing stuff that some guy in Thailand had. Don't even get me started. I'm just going to say Super Raya Productions owns it. That's it. Yes. So. This is a CGI animated film. In fact, hand-drawn animation almost doesn't exist anymore. So
it has that Into the Spider-Verse type of vibe, or sort of the animation.
Not the animation. I would say character and environmental design, but not the animation itself.
Like I was saying, sort of, kind of in that realm.
So, but yeah, so I have seen this twice now. I saw it once within like a few weeks after it was initially released. And then, of course, I watched it again here just a few days ago in preparation for this show. And then Jason, for the first time here, saw it just a few hours ago.
I just saw it this morning.
You're usually better at this than I am, Jason, in terms of like where to go. Like I said, I'm so used to doing like the Kamen Rider commentaries and Spectre Man commentaries for so long that I sort of am out of the rhythm as far as like how to go about from here in terms of a general discussion. So why don't you kind of lead the discussion here?
Well, I just want to say that my mind has been kind of a little bit everywhere this morning. So excuse me, because as of a few minutes ago, my mind was blanking out there. But yeah, as far how do we let's see, where would be the best to start? How about the characters of Ultraman Rising? What do you think of the main characters and as well as the supporting characters overall?
Okay, so we're kind of going like getting ready to go into the pool, but instead of going in at 3 feet and gradually working into the deep end, we're going in to like the middle part of the pool here. So, okay, I just want to preface what I'm about to say with that. Part of what I'm going to be talking about with the characters is going to connect with elements of the story as well. So it's going to be a combination of the two as I proceed from here. Okay. boy. I'm trying to. I don't want to be. I'm trying to organize my thought for a moment because I don't want to be jumping all over the place here. So let me just say, if you've seen films like 3 Men and a Baby, The Pacifier, any type of film in which characters, and it's usually men, even Daddy Daycare, for example, it's usually men, male characters, put in a situation to take care of a child or children, then you've seen Ultraman Rising. That is basically the gist of the film. With that being said, getting into character work, our main character, Kenji or Ken Sato, is like any other stereotypical character you would see out of a movie like those I just mentioned, where this is a male character. He is a professional baseball player who we see him as a kid in the first couple minutes to start the film, and then it jumps forward probably 20 something years to where he played with the Dodgers for a few years, and now he's back in Tokyo playing with the Giants. What's the actual like city name? What's the I forget the name of that. It's what Matsuki or Matsui played on.
The Yomiuri Giants.
Okay, yeah, because I don't.
But they're based in Tokyo. But
yeah, I just kind of forgot like the city name, so to speak, of that.
I don't think it's really a city name.
I'm probably a district.
Something. I'm not entirely sure. I know
I'm not familiar with Japanese baseball.
I sort of delved into it, but I didn't quite delve into the actual name, Yomiuri. I would have suspected it would just be Tokyo Giants because I know there's another Tokyo team not too terribly far playing at a different stadium from the Giants because they play over at the Tokyo Dome there. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure the reason behind that.
I'm not familiar with Japanese baseball in terms of, I mean, I'm sure the game more or less is played the same, but I'm not familiar in terms of like all the team names and where they're located and stuff. I barely even pay attention to professional baseball here in the States. So basically he's in his 20s. His dad, when he was a child, was Ultraman, technically in a way still is an Ultraman, but now he somehow has become an Ultraman. He comes home for reasons, mainly his mother has disappeared, and he still has like a rough relationship with his dad because his dad, he thinks, didn't go searching after his mother when she disappeared. And so he's very egotistic. Yes.
I just want to quick butt in. The reason why is that the team is owned by a media conglomerate over there called the Yomiuri Shimbun Holdings there. So that's where the name comes from. Yeah, because now I remember it's like a lot of the sports teams over there are owned by companies.
That's actually bad.
So well, it's like a lot of them will have like the company name before the nickname and stuff, but I know there are others that'll have a town name. So yeah, there you go.
That's actually terrible. That would be like having like the Amazon slugs, the Walmart, Vipers.
Because I think a lot of them like the Japanese American Football League over there called the X League, where a majority of those teams are owned by companies, and a lot of those players and stuff work for the company and stuff. And there's like a lot of things over there. So their stuff is set up a lot differently compared to us over here.
I don't know it's bad enough that, you get certain things involved with professional sports over here, but that to me sounds even worse than what we got over here. But
anyways,
but he's an egotistical guy. And during one night, when Gigantron, a new kaiju that is introduced by the people who produced this movie, comes up. There is this kaiju egg that is hatched. It was originally stolen from Gigantron by the Kaiju Defense Force there in Tokyo to lure Gigantron out. And then during the tussle with Ultraman, the egg gets out of their grasp, finds out it's an egg, it hatches, and Ken takes it back to his very Bruce Wayne-like type of home, and the baby Gigantron imprints on him, and the same old song and dance happens with these kinds of movies where he is flabbergasted, he's beside himself, he doesn't want any part of it, no responsibility. But then through a montage, ends up, coming to terms with this situation and ends up caring for this baby Gigantron kaiju, in which his father eventually names Emmy, which is the name of his mother. And then the rest of the movie is about trying to protect this baby from the Kaiju Defense Force and what they presume to be Mecha Gigantron, but is actually Gigantron just suited up in mech armor by the Kaiju Defense Force at the end of the movie to lure Emmy out to try to find this mysterious Kaiju island, because the head of the Kaiju Defense Force, Dr. Onda, his family was killed by Kaiju odd number of years earlier. He's pissed. He's already killed an odd number of Kaiju. He wants to go to Kaiju Island and kill the remaining Kaiju. Okay, so that more or less is kind of the story with a little bit of character work peppered in, because I think that's kind of important for people to understand that. With that being said, like I said, it's tropish. None of these characters are original. None of them really stand out. And in fact, I'm going to say that Sato, I don't think is really all that likable. He becomes, to me anyways, a tad likable towards the end. But because he's such a jerk and he's still very egotistical through all the way till the end, until like the final 2 minutes, which isn't enough for me to really win me over to his side. Sato is not a likable character. I don't even like him as Ultraman because he's such a prick. And look, I understand they're trying to tell that story, but like I said, I've seen this before. I'm tired of this formula. And on top of that too, he's such a jerk throughout most of the 2-hour runtime that by the time they make him likable, there's not enough time to sort of stick with him for me to like him enough by movie's end. To kind of get into a little bit of the story aspect, because this also weaves in with character work. This story is longer than it should be. It's muddled, and it takes shortcuts in areas that it shouldn't, and it expands on things that it really shouldn't. They should have either been cut out or shortened. The beginning of this movie is a very good start, but then it fast forwards, which is fine. But then I expect to get more information about Ken and his dad and his mom, and we do a little bit, but it's not enough for me to totally understand Ken's journey to how he got to be an egotistical prick. How did he end up becoming an Ultraman? Because from my understanding of the Ultra universe, to be an Ultraman, like, you have to be a very special person to be part of the Ultraman squad. His dad was an Ultraman. How did he become an Ultraman? Meaning Ken. And I find this hilariously bad in that this whole movie, kind of behind the scenes, he's upset with his dad because his mother disappeared. I'm like, wait, like she left him? No, she just disappear. I've never heard of anything like this in a movie. Or usually if they say someone disappears, we find up later that they're dead. She probably is dead, but they don't find a body or anything like that here in this movie. They just say she disappears. And I'm like, that's one of the weirdest, oddest, creepiest, dumbest things I've ever heard in a film. She just left. We even by movies that we have no idea what happened to her other than she, as they say, disappeared. It's one of the most hilariously bad things about this film. She disappeared. And I can't go along with the journey that Ken is feeling, that even his dad is feeling. They try to mend that a little bit, but what they end up doing is they go through same old song and dance tropes that we've seen in similar movies. Again, we go through a montage of Ken's growing into the job of being a kaiju parent. And I will say there are moments when Ken's trying to take care of Emmy that hit me kind of hard, but that's because I'm a parent. I have 2 kids, and it sort of reminded me at times of when my kids were babies and trying to take care of them. But I think for most people who aren't parents or have never been parents, I don't think it's going to hit them with the feels all that much. But even then, I've seen this whole thing before. Character development makes no sense, is sparse. And I can't connect with any of these characters. The reporter gal should have played a more integral role in this movie. What was her name? I forget her name. I'm not very good with these.
Let's see here. Mina, I believe.
Mina, yeah. It seemed like kind of early on she was going to play a bigger role because she kind of is involved there for about 5-10 minute period. And then by and large, more or less disappears. She doesn't help like push Ken to become a better version of himself or to help him grow in any substantial way. She's just there for the audience to try to poke and prod a little bit more into his history, or his past, I should say. But even then, she doesn't do a very good job of it because we still don't learn enough in the grand scheme of things about him and his past, because I don't mind the jump into the future like what they did. But usually if you do that at some point in the movie, usually kind of by the middle part, you start to see and fill in more of the gaps. We don't get that with Ken. Because when we see him as a little boy at the beginning of the movie, he seems like a wonderful kid who is obviously terrified of kaiju and loud sounds and stuff like that, loves baseball and is very tight with his parents and all that. And then we fast forward and he's this egotistical jerk and is that way up until the final few minutes of the film. I don't care for these characters. Even Dr. Onda is a very stereotypical character. Kaiju killed my family. Now I want to kill them all. Okay. I mean, I understand there's no original ideas out there, but can you expound upon that? The movie doesn't. They don't put him in the movie enough to try to do that. There's one brief moment they try to make him sympathetic, but it doesn't really work because, again, they don't spend enough time with him in the course of the film. And then at the end of the movie, when he turns his stealth-like fighter plane into a mech to fight Ken and his dad in Ultraman form, and then the Gigantron mother, he becomes this bloodthirsty villain. And so again, trying to sympathize with a character like him, the villain, it doesn't work because the writers of this film, I think, focus too much on areas that should have been shortened or cut out and not enough on other important areas and filling in the gaps, because this movie, I think if you don't count the credits, is like 1 hour and 50 minutes. That's too long for a movie like this. Way too long. This should have been at max 1.5 hours. And I think if they did that, this movie would be better, even though it's still a tropish movie, but maybe the character work would have been better as a result because it would have forced them to pay closer attention to things like what's important in telling the story and developing our characters. But instead, if you give them almost an unlimited amount of time to tell your story, a lot of bad decisions happen. And I think a lot of bad decisions were made in terms of the characters and how to go about telling this story.
Mm-hmm. Now, you kind of went a little bit everywhere there.
Well, I told you that the character work kind of blends in with the story.
Yeah. As far as the character part of it, I probably would disagree with you a little bit on some of the things there as far as the main character, Ken or Kenji, acting the way he was. I would say that he did, act a little bit more egotistical, when we get to the present part into the movie. But then as time went on, he started to soften up a little bit, especially once he gets the baby Gigatron there and tries to do a lot of stuff, but then calls this Mina gal and tries to figure out how she can do things, being a parent herself and all that, and to try to kind of get some advice in a way. And then he starts to, once she gives him the advice and everything, I think that you start to then see improvements on his character there. And I would say overall the character development here, I say, was pretty good in its own way. And I know that we were talking earlier before we started doing the recording here, and kind of got your reasoning behind it, because from what you said, that you were more or less exposed to a lot of the reactions of the movie and how a lot of people were praising it and everything. And I think, and in your own terms, when a lot of people have been praising a lot of things, and you get sort of the reaction of, kind of the meh reaction.
And can I elaborate a little bit more on that? Is that I think, okay, like if I didn't see any of those reactions, I still would have gone in excited, because I'd be like, okay, like a brand new Ultraman thing. I don't think I would come out I still would come out not enjoying this. Because again, like I said, if you've seen a movie like Three Men and a Baby, you've seen this kind of movie. And not only is it something that I've seen time and again, I've not only seen it time and again, and all these movies are more or less the same. I think I'm not a fan of those kinds of movies to begin with, because again, like I said, they're all really the same. And thirdly, I just don't think something like this necessarily fits with Ultraman unless you are trying to show it to kids. And I don't think the filmmakers here were trying to exclusively show it to kids. I think this was meant to try to cater to a broader audience. And I personally think, and I don't think I said this yet since we started recording, I don't think this movie was exclusively made for kids. And I think as a result, most adults are going to walk away from this going, this isn't what I was hoping to get out of an Ultraman movie.
And this is sort of kind of where I sort of disagree with you on this front, because I know a lot of times that you'll talk as far as trying to do something a little bit different with certain things. And certainly this was different compared to many of the other Ultraman, because most of the stuff that we see in all Ultraman series, even today, is a bit formulaic, and it, to me, is sort of getting a bit tiresome. So try to do something a little bit different. And I think that this is where that they wanted to do something a little bit different. And this is kind of where I'm diving into more of the story. And from what I saw, as far as KDF being more the villain this time around, instead of, any of the kaiju and any of the Ultraman series, I think is more of a breath of fresh air into the whole Ultraman franchise, trying to do something a little bit different than the whole same formulaic aspect. But I would at least agree with you as far as the story is that we don't even know what the heck happened to Kenji's mother and all that. That was a little bit strange in a way that we never
and the relationship with his dad in those years, from what we saw at the beginning when he was a child to when he's a pro player.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say, I'm again, and I've said this I even said this multiple times when we talked about Shin Godzilla. I'm all for doing something new, but it's in the execution. And I'm not going to go over Shin Godzilla. My thoughts on that are out there. You can go find them. I'm not, it's not a secret. But like I was saying here earlier, the writers, I don't think they did a very good job of really focusing on what needed to be focused on. And I think trying to make this a broader audience type of film was the wrong thing to do. What they should have done, not only just done a better job writing, but what they should have also done is try to make this more exclusively for younger audiences. And as a result of it trying to be more of a broad audience, I have to be a bit tougher on it because that includes me. And for someone like myself, I just don't think it works because, again, of writing and focusing issues involved. I will give this. Okay. And then a lot of people say, well, then, do you have any ideas of what maybe they could have done instead? I do have one idea. I had two, but I already forgot it. But I know I have one instead. If you want to have a story about Ultraman being about family oriented and all that, one idea could have been that you have something along the similar lines of the original Ultraman series, where you have Ken, instead of being a pro player, is Ultraman. And again, how he became Ultraman is a complete and total mystery here. He just is, which kind of bugs the heck out of me. But have him be part of the M78 group or whatever you want to call it. And then between him and his colleagues kind of realize, look, we are a family. Or maybe have them find an orphan kaiju that either a kaiju killed the parent, or when Ultraman killed the parent, that they realize, oh, we have to raise this kid, and the group together. And then together as a group, they help each other because you're going to get different perspectives. And I think on top of that, you're going to be able to, and again, this still requires good writing, but with more characters in the fore, you are going to be forced to not only develop everybody, but to look at various sides of issues in terms of what it means to be a part of a family and how to raise a child and all that. Or like I said, take the kaiju element out entirely in terms of, the thing of the baby, and focus on each other and realize oh my gosh, none of us are married or have families. And they kind of realize that even though they're work colleagues, that they are their own family. You hear athletes, for example, say over the course of a season, they're with their second family because they eat and sleep and travel with these guys however many months out of the year. And so have them kind of learn that way. So that's one or two different ideas there that they could have approached this. The way that they did it here is not very well done. It's like I said with Shin Godzilla, it's in the execution. And I mean, forget the fact too that I'm not a huge fan of these kinds of movies where some guy comes, oh, I don't want to take care of a kid, and then over the course of the movie, you know, falls in love with, you know, the role of being a surrogate parent. Forget that. Just the execution of the story itself, how it's written, is very sloppy in my mind, because it could, even if you wanted to tell this exact story, there were better ways of doing it. Because one of the keys is figuring out what happened in that 15, 20 year odd span. Because it's fine if you jump forward, but then you have to fill in some of those big gaps in there, because what we start out with versus what we end up with, there's still a lot of question marks. I still walk away still trying to figure out exactly how things turned out the way that they did, because it's so poorly done. I still laugh when they just say mom disappeared. I did, like I said earlier, I've never heard of anything like that. And if someone does say that, we always find out that they either find him again or we find a body. None of that happens. And I thought at the end, yeah, we would find out that she was, I don't know, somewhere and then comes home, or that she would be a special Ultraman character that would come out towards the end. And another thing that I think is really hilarious is they talk about this mysterious Kaiju island that no one knows exists. And I go, are you kidding me? Because with all the satellites we have, we know where every single island is on this planet. And like nobody knows where it is. Give me a break. And on top of that, when we actually see part of Kaiju Island at the end, it's this massive island. I'm going, how do you not know where something that big is? It's poorly written.
The one thing I want to add, as far as the mother there, I would have assumed that she probably would have come back towards the end, like after all this time and stuff since her disappearance. I thought she, for the purpose that she was trying to figure out where Kaiju Island was. That was my assumption in a way. But then as far as the location of Kaiju Island, where you mentioned about as far as satellites and everything. So time out.
I know, but it's still so dumb considering when we see how big it is. But
the other thing, you can say the same thing with Skull Island, with the Monsterverse, you know, with all the satellites and everything and all that. With Kaiju Island, with this movie, it was also just like Skull Island. It was also surrounded by huge amounts of clouds, mist, fog, whatever you want to name it. And you can say sort of the same thing with Skull Island after all these years. I would say since from the 76 Kong movie all the way up to now, pretty much, with all the satellites and everything. But yeah, as far as the whole other situation, that's sort of my mind was going towards, like, we would see her towards the end, like trying to figure out where Kaiju Island was.
Well, yeah, but you talk about like Skull Island. Like if you're talking about the Kong Skull Island movie, that movie was taking place in the early 70s. And while we had satellites, a lot of them were used to spy on Russia. But even then, we didn't have enough satellites in the sky, nor did we use them enough to map out enough of the globe like we have since then. And this movie, Ultraman Rising, is contemporary. It's present day. Like anything like Kaiju Island should have been found like 2 or 3 decades ago. And I mean, I know maybe that's a nitpick, but I still, if this movie were held in like the 70s or 80s, I'd be more willing to go with it, because that's like what Skull Island, the first Skull Island movie was. It was in the early 70s. But
well, I think that was sort of the same. Yeah. At the beginning of the movie, I think the way it looked like that was taking place, it looked like it was taking place maybe in the 80s or something of the sort. A dumb thumbs up thing. I don't even have it on screen. Just the way how things looked like at the beginning of the movie, it seemed like it was taking place during that sort of specific time.
Right, maybe. But even then, by the time he's an adult, it should have been found.
Who knows?
And Dr. Honda is so bloodthirsty to kill all these kaiju. I would have thought he would have made sure as much money as he could get his hands on to go into his organization, that they would have done everything they could to boost satellites and every other thing, to not only for weapons, but to just find the place as well, because that's been his obsession. It's not only just to kill any kaiju that comes to Tokyo or Japan and starts trashing cities. It's always been about finding that place and just finishing them off there.
But I think more or less with it being surrounded by fog and everything, just like Skull Island, I think that could be also the reason too. Even if you have satellite, you probably would think, so you would assume that there wouldn't be anything there. But I mean, it could be an area where there could be a lot of clouds or fog somewhere on the globe wherever that's located, but still.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but human nature, I mean, when you take a look at human history, humans have always been ultra curious. And I don't mean that in like a pun way, like Ultraman here, but like you look at all the different explorers that went across various oceans and around various continents and stuff, trying to map things out as best as they could at the time and things like that. Humans have always been a very curious species to try to figure out what their space looks like. I mean, just trying to find every nook and cranny, because that's just how we're wired. And like, even if they came across an area that was heavily fogged, I don't think they would be like, okay, well, let's not proceed any farther. They would have proceeded farther and would have eventually stumbled upon it. I just personally don't buy it. I just don't. Because to me, it makes no sense, especially given the fact that this is a movie that takes place in modern times.
To me, with this being sort of geared more towards the kids audience and sort of the way how a lot of the Ultraman shows were even back in the day. And you told me so many times with certain things, you're thinking way too much into this.
I am, but see, this is like a critique. Like, this is our review.
You're just really, you're really thinking into it.
Well, I am. And a lot of it is because this movie is not as well written. There are things I can go with if I kind of know that what they're doing is kind of shits and giggles. Like, we're just throwing this thing out there. We know it's not terrific. Here's like some weird creature and stuff. Like, I can go with that. Like, the original Ultraman series is by no means perfect, but I know it's tongue in cheek fun. This is actually trying to be serious. This is actually trying to tell what they think is a good, genuine story. And there's differences. Like, I will grade something like Son of Godzilla differently from Shin Godzilla, because I know Son of Godzilla is not really trying to be serious with what it's doing. Shin Godzilla is, though. And so, yeah, I'm going to look at it and critique it a little bit differently. It's the same way with this versus like the original Ultraman series.
For me, when at the point of view of what I'm looking at it, I get more of the vibes of some of the Pixar movies where they kind of have, it's a lot of those are geared towards children, but then you also have to bring in, the adult aspect on certain things. And a lot of those things work out for a lot of the movies, and sometimes, they don't. But that's sort of where I would say this is where the Ultraman Rising movie is trying to do, is trying to go kind of that Pixar route where, yes, it's trying to gear towards children and everything, but then also trying to bring in the adult aspect to it, just to try to, kind of make things make sense. Although there's some things in the story where like the mother situation. Not going to go back to that, but
no, let's do.
Yeah. But I can see where they are trying to go with it. Kind of the whole overall aspect of it is kind of make it sort of that Pixar-esque type of story and vibe. Not sure what exactly I'm trying to go.
Right, I get what you're saying. I'm glad you brought up.
Know the exact name of it, but
I'm glad you brought up Pixar because that was something I had thought about at one point too, and I totally forgot until you brought it up. But yeah, this is trying to pull a Pixar of sorts. And the difference, though, is that I think they are coming up incredibly short here. I think, yeah, that's what they're trying to emulate is what Pixar has done and done well for most of their films. Because, yeah, not every Pixar movie is terrific, but I would argue most of them are. And that's the thing. Like this, I think, is trying to do that, which is fine. But the problem is in the final product, in my mind, is the way they wrote it and kind of what they decided to focus on but shouldn't have instead of what they should have focused on but didn't. I think that's where the problem is. By the way, okay, I want to give, I don't want to keep being negative on this because I don't hate the movie. And part of the reason why I'm being so hard on it is because, like I said, I just don't think this film in a general sense is that well written. But I saw so many people also online in the weeks following this film's release on Netflix saying it was like one of the best Ultraman things they had seen in years. And so I went and hyped like, okay, like, let's do this. And I walked away from this kind of like, I don't understand what people see in this. I really don't. And look, if watching Ultraman become a surrogate parent is your jive, fine, more power to you. But I'm just saying from what I've seen the two times I've seen this movie, I don't see that for the reasons I've already stated. But the one of the big positives I want to give this film is I do like the animation and the designs of the characters and the environment in this film. You had mentioned like the animated Spider-Man multiverse type of films. I don't like going there because I don't like those films. I don't think those films are as good as people claim they are. Well, that's a totally different discussion. Well, but I think the animation to those gives me a headache as well. This, I think, is better than that.
Well, and to be honest, I have never seen those Spider-Verse movies, but just from seeing the trailers and excerpts of it here and there since their release is that just seeing the kind of animation that it is that they have, it sort of gave me a little bit of that vibe where it's sort of where the animation was sort of in that realm, to say the least. But yeah, I would agree with you as far as the animation part of both the world and the characters themselves. I really like it. There's a little bit of nitpicks here and there on certain things I've seen in the animation, but I'm not going to really dive into it. But yeah, overall, I do like the animation portion of this film, and I think it's really good in how they did a lot of the designs of many of the things there. But as far as the score for the film, what are your thoughts if you sort of
I forgot there was one until you mentioned it. It's that underplayed. I mean, I guess that's fine. To be quite honest, I kind of forgot. Like, I know there's music, but it obviously didn't make much of an impression on me. I mean, I guess it's fine. I mean, I'm not very high on it, nor am I very negative. So this isn't, if they offered a CD to buy it, I wouldn't buy it. I mean, that's kind of where I would be at.
Yeah. I would at least say that they didn't use any of the copyright music like a lot of strange, really. Which a lot of these movies kind of like these type of movies will have sort of those copyright, tracks and all that, but they don't. So it's really good that they just did their own music and everything. But yeah, I was I'm sort of with you that I didn't quite notice the music a whole lot, but there were some instances that I did hear some of the music, and I thought it was pretty decent to go along with this kind of movie.
And I want to say too, just to kind of give this movie more props, just to prove again, I'm not a hater on it. I like the beginning of this movie because I think it's an incredible setup. To me, it's very emotionally heartstring pulling. But then kind of once they fast forward and you kind of get into things, it's like, okay, well, the good stuff's done. And then I would say kind of near the very end, when Ken finds out that the Gigantron, what he thinks is just a mechanical version of Gigantron, is actually the real Gigantron, just outfitted with a bunch of metal armor. And you just kind of see like the Gigantron mother kind of like, in pain and stuff, because it just kind of got the crap kicked out of it a little bit. Like, to me, that sort of thing was kind of touching and stuff, seeing that. Yeah, I find it funny though too, that how they have like the characters at the end battle kind of stand up and like the water's up to their waist, but then like when Ken is no longer Ultraman, starts sinking, like the water then is endless. Like, what are you guys standing on? Well, that whole kaiju thing that we see in so many other movies. Well, like, and how are they standing up and yet the water's that deep?
Yeah, and I know you posted that meme on your Facebook page that I've seen with the one famous picture from Godzilla King of the Monsters where he comes out from the ocean, and I've seen others post similar or the exact same meme where he stands up, but then like they draw legs or do like an AI generated image of this really long leg underneath.
Yeah. I'm not going to count that against the movie because so many other kaiju movies, but again, it's just, if you're not paying close enough attention.
Every kaiju movie is like, if you're going to mention that, it's like, you're going to have to mention that for all the kaiju movies that have ever existed.
Oh, I know. But yeah, it's just, I'm like, wait a minute. There we go again.
It's like that, was it the Leonardo DiCaprio type of meme? It was like,
you froze up there. I didn't see what you did there.
Well, it's like that one Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like doing that. Thing, pointing at the TV where he's watching it from the recliner.
That was me.
Yeah. Why don't we just go into our final thoughts on the film? So why don't you go ahead?
Okay. I want to say Ultraman Rising should have been renamed Ultraman Raising, because that's more of what he's doing here. He's raising a baby kaiju. What is he rising from? We don't even see the origins of Ken becoming an Ultraman. And I don't want to go in and rehash and spend like another 10, 15 minutes solo style trying to rehash everything that I just said. I've already mentioned it once, if not a couple times already throughout the course of this discussion. I think character work is terribly sloppy. I think the storytelling is not only sloppy, but not focused properly the way that it should if you're trying to tell the story that they're attempting to tell. I think I will say Ultraman Rising is a film that if you show younger kids probably around the ages starting at 4 or 5 going all the way up to maybe 10 or so, they'll probably enjoy this film. The thing is that I do not believe this movie was intended specifically, or should I say exclusively, for that age group. Excuse me, I'm drinking all this soda and carbonated water.
That's why I got some coffee.
Yeah, I need to quit doing it, but I love this stuff. So that's part of the problem. I think and again, I'm not saying that to excuse like poor writing, because I'm not saying that when you write a kids movie, it's okay to have bad writing. That's not what I'm saying. But writing for kids movies tends to be simpler because their brains are still developing. They don't have the capacity for more sophisticated understanding of other things. This movie, I think, is definitely try to gear towards a very wide audience. And I think for older fans, this just isn't going to work because there's a lot in the writing here that is just not done very well. Again, like with Shin Godzilla and some other things that I haven't liked, I give them an A for effort, but the execution is where this whole thing falters. I don't care for the characters. I don't even like Ken Sato by the end of this thing. Mina, I thought, was supposed to have a bigger role in this. She should have had a bigger role in this. What happened in like the 20 years from the start of the movie to when he's a baseball player that we see him 5 minutes into the beginning of the film? What happened to like him and his relationship with his dad? The fact that his mother just disappeared is one of the strangest things I have ever seen in a film, and is also incredibly unimaginative, lazy writing as well. Ultraman is even barely in this film, really, now that I think about it. And that's something that I was going to bring up now that I think about it. And I didn't up until this point, because he's barely in this. He's usually Ken Sato like 90% of this film. There's not a whole lot of kaiju fighting. The villain is not in it enough, nor is as sympathetic as the writers would like us to believe he is. A lot of this is very tropish, and I understand again that there's no real original ideas, but you can take some of those unoriginal ideas and maybe make them better by adding in certain story and character elements that other films before you didn't do as well. Ultraman Rising actually falters from all that. The animation, though, is fantastic. I like the animation. I like the designs of the characters. I like the design of the world. I like the color palette presented here. I think the opening sequence is very powerful, and I think there's a moment or two at the end with a Gigantron that is very touching. I like the fact, too, that what's his name? Dr. Onda is not killed in this film. But whatever happened to him afterwards is unknown. This movie, I don't get what people who fell in love with this see it. If you love it, that's terrific. But I totally disagree that this is one of the best Ultraman things to have come along in a long time. I, to be quite honest, think it's one of the worst. This movie should have been better. It really should have been. And it's unfortunately not. And again, like I said, to start this final thought, I think if you show this to younger kids, they'll enjoy it. And even if you're an adult and you like this, hey, more power to you. I just don't think most adults who do watch it and are Ultraman fans are going to really care for it and are going to see a lot of the same problems that I'm seeing. I didn't really care for it. With that, I got to give this kind of torn between like two grades here. One I think is not strong enough, but then the next one I think is a little too strong. If there's such a grade, I'm kind of trying to choose between a D+ and a C-. I was about ready to make up my own grade, but then that's just not going to work. I'm going to say D+. I think this is a D+ film. This isn't one I'm going to go and revisit much on. I've seen it twice over. According to Jason, this thing came out in June. I've seen it twice in 2.5 months. I'm not going to see this again at all the remainder of this year. I don't see myself watching again for another few more years. I just don't think this was the best way to tell this story. Even if there's a better way to tell this exact same story with the same characters and stuff that you have, and to do it better. And they just didn't do it. I don't think, other than the animation and stuff and the designs, this to me is a huge thumbs down.
Yeah, as far as this movie goes for me, I've only seen it this morning, and with all the characters they do develop and all that stuff, I would say that they're pretty good. There could have been a little bit more potential as far as the characters, and I would probably say the same thing with the story. I did like the direction that they were trying to go with it, something new and fresh with it too. But then there's certain things I'm not going to discuss. We've already talked about earlier that they've probably should have rounded out as far as the story goes and everything. And the animation for this movie is like, it's really good animation. Nothing like what we've ever seen in any of the kaiju animations that have been done so far for this genre. And yeah, and then whatever there was as far as the score and everything, it sounded pretty good for what was going for the movie as well. And let's see here, what else? With it being, to me, with it being more, with them trying to do something kind of in the route like a Pixar movie goes, I think does a pretty good job with it. But again, with the whole mother thing, should have tried to done something to do with that. But it seems like that they sort of missed the mark on that aspect. I would say that would be sort of my biggest ding on this film, that they just didn't. They just did a whole complete mystery on that front, but with a lot of the other things, I think they did a pretty good job on it. And I think too, and what I explained earlier during our discussion, that it felt like Kent was sort of affected by a lot of the reactions and stuff by people on social media, whereas when it comes to me, I wasn't really exposed, rarely, if not at all, by a lot of the people on social media when it came to when this animated film was released. So, and with Kent sort of explaining it before I went into it, I was sort of in the middle of the road to sort of say, kind of get my mind sort of prepared with it. But I think I came out of it thinking that it was a bit better than I thought it was going to be in a way. Yes, there's certain things with it that could have been done better with it, mainly the story part to it. So with that said, for my final grade for Ultraman Rising, I'm sort of like you. I'm trying to figure out kind of going what grade I want to go with it. But I think I'll go with a B- for Ultraman Rising. I think that would be a pretty good grade for me for this movie. I would say it did a pretty good job. There should have at least been some improvements, mainly the story part to it. But I can see that they were trying to go at a much more different route, much more of a different formula than most of the Ultraman franchise has gone to, with the same old formulaic thing over and over and over again, where this was much different, fresher breath there compared to all the other Ultraman shows before this one and or films. So that's where I kind of give it that final grade for. But yeah, really good movie. Should have done some things as far as certain executions on certain things. But yeah, B- for Ultraman Rising for me.
Okay, so moving forward, we're actually going to continue our Netflix journey with discussing the Ultraman anime that has been on Netflix over the last 6-7 years. I was thinking what we do here in a couple weeks is discuss season 1, and then a couple weeks after that, season 2, and a couple weeks after that, the 3rd season, and then just final thoughts on the whole shebang. I would have liked to have done season 1 and 2 together, but
fireworks.
I've never seen that one. Jason was on fire.
I just did 2 thumbs up, and all of a sudden, fireworks just popped out behind my seat.
Do it again. Will it happen again?
I don't know.
You got the weirdest thing going on over there.
I'm not even sure why none of these thumbs up or just recently or the confetti or the fireworks stuff have never happened for you.
Maybe because I don't have that equipment over here. But
well, it shouldn't matter with the equipment. It should happen. It should happen no matter on the platform that we're using to record.
Yeah.
Yes, it should happen no matter what. But
for those the audio version, Jason went at hyper speed.
Yes, with fireworks.
But yeah, I would have liked to done season 1 and 2 at a time, but everything, because I'm doing physical therapy to rehab some of my joints, and my son's in soccer and stuff too. Things are a lot busier around here than I would like. So it would be easier for me if we did one season at a time, because in that way I'm not feeling pressured to get what is it? I think each season is 12 episodes or something, or is it 6?
If I can remember when watching the first 2 seasons, I think that they were 12.
They
episodes.
are 12. Oh, actually, no, 13.
Oh, okay. Like I said, it's been so many years since the last time I've seen the first 2 first 2 seasons.
So yeah, I mean that's plenty of episodes to try to get in a 2-week period with my kind of schedule. So
and what a way to start out our episode 200. It's in the next couple of weeks.
Ultraman anime.
Yeah.
I've only seen the first episode of season 1. That was, I don't know, within a few days to a week after it first came out. I forget how many years ago now. I never went back to it. That's not to say I disliked it. I had always meant to go back, but I just got distracted with a bunch of other things. But from what I remember, it's, I think, a little bit more violent than maybe what we're accustomed to with Ultraman. And like most anime, it's going to dive into, I think, a deeper story than what we're accustomed to having as well.
It's kind of like the whole kind of the manga feel. Well, it's based off of a manga that I've read. And I think I've discussed about it odd number of years ago. And I know I mentioned about as far as the first season of it, sort of right around that time. But it did, was it the first season? From what I'm looking here, it did come out around April 2019.
Oh, yeah, 5 years ago. That's about right. So, yeah, I mean, kind of like most of the Netflix anime, most people, if they did talked about it for a week or two and then it disappeared. So in my book, that means it's going to be great because most people aren't talking about it. So it's like, okay, well, that means it's going to be great and I'm going to love it. So I'm anxious to see that and to discuss it. At least season 1 here in a couple of weeks. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you here in a couple of weeks to continue our Netflix journey.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.